All right, I've seen all of your questions. Which running back do I start and which running back do I sit this week? Well, this video is going to help you. Here are the 10 running backs you need to start and sit before week 4 begins. And we're starting with Jeff Wilson, who this week is a must start. And that's because Wilson on Sunday Night Football against the division rival Seattle Seahawks played 71% of the snaps, and it led to 15 total opportunities, his carries 12, his targets 3. Now here's why this matters. On Sunday night, Wilson played 41 snaps, and the only other running back to see a snap was Jordan Mason, undrafted free agent. He saw just 5 snaps. This is Wilson's clear backfield. Now Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, did play on a good amount of third downs, but still Wilson was the primary back. And this is how you know the dude's healthy. He has 18 broken tackles so far this season, top 10 in the NFL, and he wasn't a full-time starter until midway through week 2. And this is what he does in 20 career games when he's basically the starter, seeing at least 5 carries in a game. It takes out the games where he's been injured in. In those 20 games, he averages over 14 fantasy points per game, which would be a borderline top 10 finish at the end of the season. He sees 15 rushing attempts per game and about 3 targets per game. This is elite usage. Do not leave him on your bench this week. So play him week 4, but sit this rookie. And that's going to be Breece Hall, who in a previous video this week, I said you should be trading for him. And I believe you should be trading for him, but not for this specific week. So let's start with the good news. Breece Hall, for the first time this year, this rookie second-round pick, actually led the Jets' backfield in snaps. He played 6 more snaps than Michael Carter. He even ran more routes than Carter. And this led to some pretty sick usage. He saw 10+ targets for the second time this season. In 3 career games, he's already hit that number twice. Thank you, Joe Flacco, and the Jets in general for how much they're throwing. So all of this is trending in the right direction. So why do I think you should sit him this week? Issue number 1, he plays the Steelers' run defense that is borderline top 10 in the NFL. When you factor in their tackling ability, they are a top 10 run defense in front. And now this might actually lead to some more targets in third down and long situations for Breece Hall, but here's the issue. He's very unlikely to see 11 targets again, because in the game when he sees 11 targets, he sees it on 24 routes, which is a good amount of routes. If anything, this number will probably come down, but that's a 45% target rate. That's more than 3 times the NFL average. It's not sustainable by any means. And the Jets right now rank first in passing plays per game with 52 attempts per game. This is by far unsustainable. So when that starts to come down, it's going to hurt the whole team, including their running back, Breece Hall. So you're sitting Breece Hall, but you're starting Jamal Williams, who is a top 5 back in my projections. Because as of right now, DeAndre Swift is not expected to play. He has not practiced to begin this week. And as this last sentence states, it sounds like things are trending toward Jamal Williams getting the start. And Williams so far this year with Swift out there, albeit limited in 2 games, Swift, but still he's been a top 10 running back in points per game with 15.9 per game, number 8 overall. That's great. And here's what he's done in his career 2 games last year without Swift. It boils down to him seeing fantastic usage, 18 rushing attempts in those 2 games and about a half a target per game, so nearly 19 opportunities per game. And now this offense is way better than it was last year behind an even better offensive line. And this dude's got a juicy matchup. It doesn't get any better for Jamal this week. If you got him on waivers, pat on the back for you. And that matchup is against Seattle, who ranks 29th in run defense. And normally this is maybe a concern because they play slower, they slow the play down, not as many plays in the game, which leads to less fantasy points. But last week they ran 71 plays, by far their most on the year, which was 24 more than they ran week 2. So hopefully this trend sticks, because it's going to lead to a lot of points for Williams. And this game environment in general looks fantastic. Here's what I mean. The Seahawks have given up the 3rd most fantasy points to the running back position through 3 weeks, and the Lions are favorites. They're 4.5 point favorites in this one, which bodes well for running backs. It means more carries in the second half on average, and they have the highest team total on the slate. They're projected to score 28 points. So expect Jamal Williams this week to score a touchdown or 2. So again, he's a top 5 back this week. He is a must. Out of all these guys, a must start in your lineup. So start him and sit this rookie. And it's going to be Damien Pierce from the Houston Texans, who had a fantastic week 3. I mean, Pierce goes out there, he sees 20 carries, 8 red zone carries in 1 game is absolutely unreal for a running back in a season. That's like, oh, okay, he saw 8 in 1 game. Oh my goodness. He actually catches 2 passes. He has over 100 total yards and a touchdown. He's a top 10 back on the week. So why are we sitting him this week, Sal? Well, simply put, he's not facing the Chicago Bears this week. And that's just one of the reasons. We'll get into some more momentarily, but the Bears rank 24th in run defense. They have a poor run defense. The bigger concern here is he did not play on passing downs at all last week. What you were seeing right here is 15 snaps, 9 on 3rd and long, 3rd and 5 or longer, and 6 in the 2-minute drill offense, which is passing down situations. All 15 of these were played by Rex Burkhead. That caps the upside of Damien Pierce immensely. And it's going to be a factor this week. Here's why. The Texans are 5.5 point underdogs. And when you're an underdog, it means that you're going to be in more passing down situations, which means more Rex Burkhead snaps. And they're facing the Chargers, who are a much better run defense, although not the greatest, a much better run defense above league average compared to the Chicago Bears. So look at it this way. The Texans are likely to be trailing in this one more often, which means to less touches and snaps for Damien Pierce. And if we're being honest, this isn't the greatest offensive line. He had 20 carries last week and he barely breaks 80 yards. So now he's going to see half of that in terms of carries. Not a great spot. So sit Pierce, but start this NFC NFC North running back, and that would be A.J. Dillon. You want to play this guy. He currently ranks 27th in actual fantasy points per game, but this is very misleading because his expected fantasy points per game, which is a truer number and which you should expect moving forward, is 15th. This is based on the usage he is seeing this season, so he is getting very unlucky early on. Now, here's what that usage actually looks like. He is seeing 13.3 carries per game and 4 targets per game. 17.3 opportunities per game is top 10 in the NFL amongst running backs, and a lot of people view Dillon as a flex option or a bench option. No, he's a starter in your lineup, especially this week when he's going to be facing the New England Patriots, who rank 22nd in run defense, and honestly, they're dealing with a lot of injuries. It does not look good. They cannot tackle all that great, and yeah, A.J. Dillon, 235 pounds of him, is a tackle-breaking machine. So start A.J. Dillon and then sit this top 5 running back. Hold on to your pants. Yes, you want to sit Clyde EdwardsHelaire, who ranks 4th right now, 4th overall in points per game with 17.7 amongst all running backs, and yeah, I'm telling you to sit him this week if you're in a 10-team league and even some 12-team leagues. Let me explain before you go all crazy. Clyde EdwardsHelaire, who's 4th in fantasy points per game, ranks 28th in expected points per game. This means that he should be nowhere near the top 5, top 10, or even top 20. He's getting extremely lucky on his touches. Another way to look at this is his production is insanely unsustainable, and he's not even the snap leader in his own backfield, which means you can go out on a limb and say he's not even the starter here, or at the very worst, he's in a clear backfield by committee, and that's because McKinnon all 3 weeks snap leader. And McKinnon's role continues to expand as they trust him more on third downs and in passing situations like they did towards the end of last year. 39% of the snaps week 1, 49% week 2, and then he plays exactly 50% of the snaps week 3 with red zone usage every single week. Clyde EdwardsHelaire is basically popping off on just 1 or 2 big plays a game or touchdowns, and those touchdowns are going to be hard to find this week. Here's why. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers is who they're facing this week, and they have not allowed any touchdowns, not rushing or receiving, to the running back this year, and they allow the least fantasy points to the running back position. This is a concern for a man who's in a part-time role in Clyde EdwardsHelaire. So the better idea here is to trade him, and that's why he was in our trade video earlier this week. But if you can't, honestly consider sitting him. But don't sit this next dude because his usage has been fantastic. And I'm talking about the Raiders' Josh Jacobs. Jacobs actually ranks top 5 very quietly in opportunity share. That means this is his backfield. Zamir White, people thought was going to be involved, the rookie. Nope, not at all. Amir Abdullah, they thought would be involved. Nope, not at all. It's Brandon Bolden, if anything, but mainly top 5 usage right now, Josh Jacobs. Now, the main issue as to why he's not an automatic start, and a lot of people so far this week have had questions if they should start him or not, is because he hasn't scored. 0 touchdowns for Josh Jacobs through 3 games, but don't expect this to continue because he's already seen 9 red zone touches. You don't see this great top 10 red zone usage and not eventually start scoring some touchdowns, potentially even multiple this week, because the Raiders are favorites this week, and although the Denver Broncos defense looks solid, they're still projected to score 3+ touchdowns. The Raiders, with that much red zone usage, they're going to start flowing in for Josh Jacobs. So make sure you grab him and put him in your lineups, and also grab this material. And that's my weekly cheat sheet, which comes with player rankings, which are very important, projections, waiver wire tiers, player notes for every single fantasy relevant player, and a whole lot more. Now, if you want to win your league, this has everything you need to do so. It's linked in the description below. And look, this is what it says right here on the screen. If you don't win your league, if you don't end up winning your league for whatever reason, I'm so confident in this that I'll refund your $10. You reach out to me and say, hey, I didn't win my league. I'll give you your $10 back. It's a one-time $10 payment for the entire year, risk-free. Go get it. So go get this material that 1,000+ other people are already using. Click the link in the description to learn more. And now let's discuss Devin Singletary. Is he a start this week? Is he a sit this week? Well, drum roll, please. He's a sit. And let me tell you why. Singletary was fantastic last week in a loss. He had 24 fantasy points, 18 total touches, 11 targets in this game. Holy cow, how are we sitting him? More good news. He saw 73% of the snaps, by far the most he's seen on the year. He was the clear starter in this game with red zone usage. What's going on, Sal? Why are you not playing the guy? Well, the Bills still rank dead last by far in the NFL in run blocking. Their run offense in general is not good, which means Singletary is going to have to continue to produce through the air with these 11 target games. And let me tell you something, it's nowhere near sustainable, because last year in his career year in the receiving department, he averaged 2.9 targets per game. So yeah, 11 targets, relying on that, or even more than 5, it's unlikely to be coming, especially when you consider that the Bills were playing from behind or in neutral situations a lot last week, which won't happen for most weeks, including this week. So sit Singletary, but play this stud. And that's right, I did not stutter. Leonard Fournette is indeed a stud based on his usage. Now, he ranks 21st in fantasy points per game at 12.4 per game, but here's the thing. Leonard Fournette right now is 7th in expected fantasy points based on the usage. He's getting extremely unlucky, and it's mainly coming in the touchdown department. Like Josh Jacobs, no touchdowns yet. If Fournette scores 1 touchdown, he's easily a top 10 running back in fantasy points per game. That's what this is saying. I mean, just look at how great his usage is this season. He ranks 3rd overall in running back usage right now. Yes, he's basically a top 3 fantasy running back. Like, he's up there with the Jonathan Taylors, the Joe Mixons of the world in terms of how they're being used. He's seen 83% of the the snaps and 85% of the carries and the targets out of the backfield. This is insane. Now, all of those percentages translate to him seeing 23 targets and carries per game. 23 at the running back position is a first-round pick indeed. And just look at who this man plays in week 4. In a beautiful primetime game, he'll take on the Kansas City Chiefs, who have allowed the most receptions to the running back position this year, and Fournette has been seeing a lot of targets. Expect even more in this one. So yes, you should start him, but then sit this AFC running back. And that would be J.K. Dobbins, who made his debut and his return in week 3. Now, in terms of fantasy, it wasn't great. He only put up 6 fantasy points. He saw just 9 touches, 40 total yards on 44% of the snaps. But if you watch the film and in real life, he actually looked pretty good. For a guy coming off of a multi-knee injury, he broke 7 tackles on his 9 touches. 7 tackles on 9 touches for a guy who was quote-unquote potentially going to be rusty? No, not at all for Dobbins. But of course, if he's a sit, there are some issues here, and there's a couple of major issues. The best thing we saw from him was him breaking tackles, but now he faces the Buffalo Bills, who rank 2nd in tackling on defense. Not great. Number 2, not great, is that the Baltimore offensive line has a negative 28% run blocking advantage, which means compared to the NFL average, they are 28% worse this week in the projections. That is not good. It's bottom 10 in the NFL. So those are 2 issues, but then there's still one major issue left. Have you ever heard of the name Lamar Jackson? Yes, Lamar Jackson is actually the running back 1 on this team, averaging 8.3 carries per game and over 80 rushing yards per game with red zone usage so far. Over 240 rushing yards, leads all quarterbacks by a mile and leads a lot of running backs. This is the biggest concern for J.K. Dobbins. Although he is indeed back, I don't even want to put him in my flex because his upside is so majorly capped, not only in this matchup, but with Lamar at quarterback. So these are the most asked about running backs in terms of start sit for week 4. And now if you want to see 12 players that you need to trade for and trade away right now before this week starts, then check out this beautiful video that's going to appear where this lovely tiger pumpkin is in the palm of my hands. And 64% of you aren't subscribed. If you're one of them, double check and hit the subscribe button.